Hello and welcome back to the Tyre Straights Podcast. If you joined us last week, welcome back, and if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. This is a motorsports podcast, mostly focusing on Formula One, but does delve into other motorsports as well. Hosted by myself, Scobbert, and my wonderful co-host,
me, Doots.
Yes.
Sorry, I was midway sipping some tea.
Oh, sorry, I didn't time that well.
Speaking of tea,
No.
let's spill the tea on the news that's happening.
No, that segue was abysmal. Right, well, what news are you bringing to me today?
Well, today I'm bringing you the latest episode of the Williams Weight Watchers. Essentially being that from when we recorded last week, the Williams car had failed 3 crash tests, was roughly 30 kilograms overweight, and they were looking in horrendous shape going into the season, so much so that they didn't show up to the shakedown testing in Barcelona. But since that, they have now managed to get it down, according to reports, to 4.4 kilograms off the minimum weight, which is only about 0.4 kilograms heavier than the Mercedes. So it's looking pretty, well, not promising, but more confidence should be there for the team.
Indeed.
So I pose the question, what are your thoughts on how they're going to do in testing now that we know they're not going to be as far behind, but still have that Mercedes engine?
Well, what I was going to add is Johnny Herbert, the former F1 race winner, has he's chipped in and said, following these revelations about Williams and their sort of change in trajectory, he says that he reckons they'll avoid, quote, a big loss, which is good. So he reckons that they're on a good track as well, which is relieving, obviously. Like I said this last week, we all want Williams to do well, even if they're obviously, maybe not the best team in the last 10 years. Everyone likes them. They're sort of the plucky underdogs. They always have been in the last, since the regulations changed in 2014 to the turbo hybrid era. And I think obviously they've still got a way to go. Because they've missed that shakedown. They still don't know how their car is going to perform, but they've obviously got testing in Bahrain to relieve themselves, or possibly, give themselves more to worry about, depending on what how the car feels for them. But they've got 2 very competent, very experienced drivers who will be able to, get to grips, figure out the strengths and weaknesses of this car, and be able to sort of give a feedback to the engineers and the technicians that will allow them to iron out any deficiencies.
And the other thing is, while they don't have data from shakedown themselves, of course, with them using a Mercedes engine, they can use any of the data collected by the Mercedes team for like engine reliability and powertrain information, which is a lot of what is needed going into like these new regulations. They'll be completely blind on the aero and like the handling and stuff like that. But from a team perspective, engine reliability and setup and stuff like that, there is more data than any other engine pre-sorted for them.
Yes, no, they're obviously not in an advantageous position, but they're certainly not, completely on the outside, dead to rights. They can definitely make it back from here and fix themselves up going into the testing.
Yeah. Now the Mercedes engine, the big rumor is that it's meant to be considerably stronger. There's a trick with the fuel compression ratio. It's been changed for this season's regulations to 16-1, and the way that that's measured is when the car is at room temperature, and as such, the Mercedes factory have figured out a way to make the car, when it's fully running, run closer to 18-1, which will give them an extra amount of horsepower per from the engine, and a certain amount of time per lap. I think about 0.3 seconds a lap, was the rough estimate.
Mm.
Now, the FIA have come forward saying they're considering changing these rules on how it's measured, which could considerably hamper the advantage that everyone has been hyping up the Mercedes engine to have.
Now, this is interesting because in the first weeks after this revelation that the Mercedes engine might be stronger than the other, engines that were being manufactured, the FIA actually sort of said that they weren't going to change engine regulations. They sort of stuck by it and said the teams have found this advantage. And there's always been an element of that in motorsports where teams will find some sort of a gap in the rules. I mean, I think back, it just makes me think of 2009 Brawn GP, the double diffuser. That was a gap in the rules, which was obviously patched up in the next, I think it was the next 2 seasons. It's that kind of thing.
The double axle steering for
Mercedes.
Mercedes again back in 2020. I want to say that was.
Yeah, it was something like that. But yeah, there's always been an element of finding a loophole in the rules and exploiting it for your own gain. So it's not like it's completely out of left field. Mercedes are scumbags kind of thing. It's definitely within the realms of what's expected almost. But the fact is, obviously, the other engine manufacturers and even Red Bull, who was rumoured to have a power unit that was of the same, exploiting the same weakness in the rules to get an increase in the compression rate when running at high speeds. It just means that that pressure that is now being put on from other engine manufacturers is definitely making the FIA sit a little bit more uncomfortably. And I think that's probably why dialogues have now been opened about possibly changing the rules on that.
Well, yeah, it was essentially there was a camp group together of the engine manufacturers of Ferrari, Audi, and Honda that were trying to push to get this change because obviously they're at a massive disadvantage. Red Bull initially were replicating Mercedes fuel compression rates or attempting to emulate that in their engine. Now, so originally they were fine with it. They're like, yeah, it's part of the innovation. We just built a better engine. But since then, they have now, as of recent, gone back round on it, saying that no, it should be changed. And the rumours are it's because they've failed. It's that they've been spending their time attempting to mimic the fuel compression ratio trick that the Merc engine has, and they've given up and basically thrown in the towel and said, no, it's unfair.
Yeah, no. Red Bull have always prided themselves almost on their ability to innovate, but I think in this instance they may have just bitten off more than they could chew. That's the speculation, at least.
They have prided themselves on the innovation, but also they are dealing with a new... Because, of course, there is Red Bull powertrains, but they're dealing with Ford now, so it's a massive changeover from Honda.
Mm.
And the other thing is, Red Bull have very well made themselves known. They're good at whinging when things don't go their way.
That is also something that they have exhibited, yes. But
no direct hate to the team, but also...
it's just history has shown us.
History has shown if something is not going Red Bull's way, they like a good, point the finger.
But yes, on that point though, do you think that Red Bull's change in opinion on the matter has come because of this failure, or do you think it's out of a genuine desire to see more sportsmanship?
I think it's very easily both. I think they wouldn't mind the increased sportsmanship on the fact of these other regulations. We shouldn't be looking for loopholes, but all the teams are always looking for loopholes. Merc have just found the best one. I think they've pushed, they were pushing to get the fuel compression ratio trick, and if they couldn't get it, they were, I think that was in the plan that they were going to 180 if they couldn't, because that's how the game is played. It is much, especially when there is already, every other engine manufacturer besides you and Mercedes are saying this needs to change. You'd be, pushing the camp forward. And when there's only one engine that is refusing to change, they're clearly the problem.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, if they could crack that trick, The only team they wouldn't have like massive advantage over is Mercedes, and that's fine because they had like Red Bull have before beat Mercedes in straight line fights anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not too big a deal for them. Whereas, like if it's just Mercedes with the engine trick and everyone else is, shit out of luck, then obviously that wouldn't be very good for any of the teams. And so people who clearly want to win are pushing hard now.
Yes. I think it's definitely going to be an interesting week or two. Obviously, we got testing coming up the weekend to come. So in the time until then, obviously...
It's not the weekend.
No, sorry.
It's literally
the weekend to come
just during the week.
Oh, yeah,
Actually, that's something else I want to do a brief chat about here. They're only broadcasting the final hour. I mean,
really?
Certainly in the UK. I don't know about other countries, but in the UK, where us two are based, they're only broadcasting the final hour of each day of testing, which I just think is a bit strange, because testing is not like a race where all the action is going to be crammed into a set amount of time. Testing is several large, lengthy blocks.
Yeah.
Where cars will be going out, doing a couple of runs, coming back in, stopping, flow-vis paint, put on aero rakes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not like there's constant action, so they could be showing us this final hour, and in that final hour, no one could do anything. Like, there is a chance that they are broadcasting track time that no one is dealing with, or no one is doing anything interesting.
I mean, that is a point though, because obviously that's the point at time during the session in which they're going to have brought the data back to the garages now, and they're going to be going over that data, reviewing it, going over the sort of to the technicians and the engineers, saying this is how the car feels, this is what's good, this is what's bad. It's that point where obviously you're going to get less track time. It's not even like speculation, that's a fact. So I mean, I didn't know this. Nor did I know that it was not even just the weekend. That's genuinely a revelation to me.
Yeah, no, the weekend it's not too. It's the Wednesday the 11th to Friday the 13th.
Yes.
It just runs during the day, but they are broadcasting the final hour.
Now that is curious.
It's just a bit strange. I don't think it's the end of the world or anything.
Absolutely not. But it just
I just find it random for testing, especially because the people who are watching testing realistically are people who are either just want to see cars on track, in which case, sure, fine, final hour, you might get something on track, that's fine. But a lot of the time when people are watching testings, because they want to actually see how some of the cars work, see hear a bit more insight, because you get a lot of chat from the the presenters and pit lane crew and stuff like that about certain technical aspects, especially with the new regulations coming in. And if they're just going to give us 1 hour, it just feels a bit daft. Yeah. But that being said, the second test, because there is 2 weekends or two midweeks of test, the second test is fully broadcast in theory. Good. So that should be much better.
I mean, that'll help us out when talking about it in the podcast.
I'll still try and watch that 1 hour if I can.
Yes,
but
no, same.
The issue is, here it is at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which is not the most ideal time.
No, but
who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, with the news aside, to get into the sort of meat of this episode of the podcast, we wanted to before the season, we wanted to give some rankings on some things. We wanted to go over every track on the calendar and sort of rank them coherently, and also rank all of the drivers. Now, we obviously were bound to have differing opinions on these, so we have both prepared our own individual lists that we will go up through over the ascending order respectively, and sort of give a little bit of our reasoning as to why we have placed each track or driver at a certain position, and then we'll go up the list, see where we're the same, see where we're different. And for anyone who wants to just be able to review the two lists for both of us later on, they will be on our Instagram account. which is under the same name as the YouTube and Spotify channels. And
that being Tyre Straights Podcast.
Indeed. So you'll be able to find us there, and our latest post, as of when you see this, will include the list on the tracks and the list on the drivers from both of us, respectively. But on that note, do you have anything to add before we get into it?
Yes, what I do want to say is that these are, for the tracks, this is based on whatever our personal criteria is.
Yes.
So we didn't come up with a joint agreement of what we're actually ranking. But what I will say is this is just for the Formula One version of the tracks. Because certainly for mine at least. But this is like, a track can be really good in another series, but if it's not good in F1, it's not going to score as highly.
Yes.
And do you have any like personal biases you've leaned towards?
I was just going to say, in terms of the consideration for my list of the tracks, I've tried to balance every sort of factor to go into it with the history, the sort of races it's produced over that time since it first came onto the calendar. You know, location, everything around it. You know, how does it feel for fans? And also just like the layout, things like so. I've really tried to balance a lot of everything rather than as well as my own personal preference and bias. So while this is while my list is definitely going to be reflective of my own personal opinions of the tracks, it is also sort of based a little bit more balanced on other factors as well. Now, obviously, we didn't sort of get into cahoots about this prior. You know, we didn't sort of rank them together. We have our own two separate lists, so. Yes, I don't know if you've gone through a different criteria is all.
I kind of have, in the sense that I've based a lot of mine more on the modern racing aspect of it, as in how has the track been recently.
Okay.
Like, so you can get there's points for history, 100% points for like it being historically fantastic, but also if a track nowadays just doesn't have it anymore. Or, for example, it's had a couple of good races, but everything else has been kind of like a couple of phenomenal races, but everything else has kind of been mediocre. It kind of middles it out a bit. The only other thing I will say is for the Madring, which is the brand new track on this calendar, I have put it where I think it'll be.
Yeah.
As in, I've opted to put it in order of a racetrack where I think it'll be compared to others. Okay.
Well, with that said, do you want to start us off at number 24 on your ranking? What do you think is the worst track on the calendar, objectively, in your mind?
Number 24, my opinion for the worst Formula One track currently on the calendar is the Miami International Autodrome. Because it's not had many races. Each one has been quite dull and a bit of like a procession. There's been one good fight in recent memory, and that was kind of just Max going through the pack back in like 23.
Yeah, 2023 from P9 on the grid.
Yeah, after like the crash in qualifying from Leclerc, and Perez was on pole, and it's. What annoys me so much about this is that this is a track, and this will come up later for other tracks, but this is a track that has been designed solely for Formula One. It didn't exist before. They had a quite large open car park area. Obviously, they had to work around the Hard Rock Stadium, but they still had plenty of space to work with. And they've somehow managed to make something that has one overtaking spot. One feasible overtaking spot, and that is the like hard braking corner at the long end of the back straight.
Yes, at the end of the straight.
Yeah, and which is just like, so all the passes are either going to be a straight line, it's not DRS pass anymore, but formerly DRS pass, or just lunge down the inside on that corner. And I need to mention that it contains the worst corner complex of, I'm tempted to say, of any Formula One track ever being the turn 14 to 16 complex,
yes.
where it goes under the main road, and it's just unfathomable that they didn't just make it go straight and turn the corner. Like, it's baffling why that exists. I understand it's probably because there's a foundational support in the way for the bridge, but it's still just bad.
Yes.
Aesthetics, I haven't really considered too much. I don't
also
hate
grim.
the fake. I don't hate the fake harbour as much as I used to.
It's tacky. It's tacky.
It feels a little tacky, but I also kind of like how gimmicky it is in like a strange way. You know, like when you go to a cinema and you buy like a cinema hot dog, and it's like it's so bad that it's kind of wraps around of being good. I kind of feel that with the harbour. Like the fake harbour, and I do like that the paddock is inside the Hard Rock Stadium. I think that's kind of cool.
I think your opinion, based on the weird hot dog analogy and just what you're saying, I think you may have forgotten to take your medication.
Possibly. Speaking of, there you go. I'll take them now. Don't worry.
Well, on the note of Miami, Miami is.
Do you want to go?
Number 23 on my ranking, so I have ranked it almost equally low, but I have placed just underneath it, in the 24th spot on my list, the new track, the Madring, because I dislike the layout very, very, very much. I mean, obviously we haven't seen cars around it yet, so my opinion of it could elevate, it could get even worse somehow, but I just don't see any sort of potential overtaking spots that stand out to me. And also, you know, street circuits are something we don't need more of, in my opinion, because more often than not, the street circuits do not produce the better racing. Qualifying is normally quite entertaining, but the racing itself is... Most street circuits, aside from, you know, possibly the like certain parts of Baku or Jeddah, most of them don't really have enough open space to get enough cars, you know, going side by side. So it's just that's just a general blanket rule for street circuits in my mind, and that's why on my list there is a trend of street circuits tending to rank lower. But aside from that, I also can't ignore the elephant in the room, in that I know obviously Imola has not been producing obviously the greatest races, but that's in the last 5 years, but that's not to say that it hasn't still produced better racing than I think the Madring would produce. And also, it is Imola. It is Imola. Imola is a great track that has produced some great racing, and it has a great layout. Imola is always fun, for me at least, and the fact that we've lost it for this abomination, this unholy creation, is just unfathomable to me. So, Madring is number 24 for me, just below Miami in number 23. But back throwing the ball over to your court, what is your number 23 pick?
Actually, do you want to just run through your thoughts on Miami while we're doing it? We'll just snake up.
I really more or less share the same opinion, you know, terrible layout and design. Like I sort of added on to what you were saying as well, I just think things like the fake harbour and things are very tacky. It's trying hard to be something it's very much not, which is effectively, it is a glorified car park with some advertising sponsors and some curbs placed on it. There's no sort of getting around that, because it is just the fact of the matter. And, you know I'm sort of generalising it and making it sound worse than it is, but it is effectively just a car park and a bridge that has had some curbs slapped on it. And it's also the fact that it's comfortably, and obviously you've already given plenty of reasons, but it is comfortably the worst track on the F1 grid that we've seen so far in terms of actual races. But also, it's somehow got an 8 years or something of a contract, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the ridiculous thing. Is they've given it a shit long contract for it. I think it's 2035 is its quote unquote final race so far. And it's such a bad track. And obviously, you know, there's money in it, and the United States lately has become more and more invested in Formula One. You know, we could get into the effects of you know, DTS and its consequences or whatever, you know, things like that. But whatever the case, America is slowly starting to accept Formula One more and more,
and there is a lot more money in America for it, but Miami is just so bad. But anyway, with that out of the way, what as I was saying sort of a minute ago, what is your number 23 pick?
So my number 23 is the Losail International Circuit, Qatar. Now, the big first and foremost thing I want to state about Qatar is that this track was not designed for Formula One cars. The idea behind it is it was originally designed as a motorcycle track, and for MotoGP,
yes, it was.
It's great. Like, it's honestly a pretty damn good track for MotoGP. But and like even WEC, like it's got sort of WEC, it's got some like very good aspects to it for something that isn't Formula One. The idea was that it was meant to be a temporary circuit for 2021 until they can build a new one after Qatar were done with the World Cup in 2022. And then in 2023, they brought it back and just decided, we can't be bothered to build a new purpose-built track for Formula One anymore. Just update this one a little bit.
Yeah.
And the problem with updating this one a little bit is now the surface cannot, it eats through tyres. It demolishes tyres. In 2023, it was like a 4-5 stop race. A tyre could not do more than 20 laps or something like that. Or it was a ridiculous number of stops. And there was even a hard cap limit to the amount of laps that people could do in the most recent race in 2025.
Yes.
And there's nowhere to overtake. There's one DRS straight, which is no longer a DRS straight, and maybe the change to have the overtake mode and boost mode around the whole lap may improve this track a bit. But when there was the DRS straight and then a bunch of high-speed corners, nothing's happening. No one is able to overtake without it being a straight DRS pass down the pit lane or down the pit straight.
Yeah.
So it's just produced very uninteresting racing. It had one good year. The 2021 was decent because it was new. 2023 was interesting.
It was brutal though.
It was interesting because it was chaos. And then 2024 was just a dull race where nothing happened, and 2025 was even worse because every single car besides one pitted on the exact same lap.
Yeah, it did. It did just mean there was no sort of strategy, sort of action to enjoy.
There was no strategy,
and that
there
obviously,
was no strategy.
Like you say,
changing condition
on a track that suffers from not really producing great racing on the track, to then have no sort of strategy to sort of focus on as a viewer. It just made it a very dull procession, really, last year. But
it was.
No, go on.
I mean, we saw it in 2025 with the fact that the idea that you have more flexibility, because there was the whole discussion of if you pit earlier, you have to do a 2-stop, but you get more flexibility about when you pit, or you can do a 1-stop and only you have to stop on a certain lap. But the thing is, you just couldn't overtake without it being a DRS pass. So it made no difference having the flexibility. You'd much rather have the track position.
Yeah.
So it just produces boring racing, and I don't know if that's going to change with the difference in boost and overtake, but it could. So there is a possibility Qatar could go up.
Now,
but that is a big if.
I would just like to add, because, spoiler alert, Qatar is higher up on my ranking than it is on yours. I would just like to say, in terms of the actual track layout, I think it is a very competent layout and could be good for Formula One with some amendments, things like the surface and everything. That I think would make it a better track. And also, obviously, the conditions there. 2023 was a brutal race with, Logan Sargent having to retire, feeling very unwell, which is obviously not fantastic. And Lance Stroll reporting blacking out on the straights, once again, not fantastic. So it's definitely a mixed bag for me, because I feel like Qatar has the potential to be better. Not great, by all means, but better.
Yeah. So, I think to make it decent for Formula One, you would have to reprofile a lot of corners
Yes.
because they are far too high speed and like too fast. There's not enough hard braking zones for the cars to actually catch up to one another without it just being from slipstream. And there's too many corners for the cars to effectively get close enough to pass besides the pit straight.
Right. Yeah. But
Right.
yeah, I agree. Moving up though, what have you ranked above Qatar on your list?
Above Qatar, I have put the Mudring. I don't think the Mudring is going to be good, but I do think it is going to be interesting.
Right.
Basically looking at the current renders and like digital versions of it that exist, I think there is a chance it could provide alright racing. And by alright I mean like a bit of chaos, realistically.
Right.
There's a fast chicane into a tunnel that I think is psychotic, and I kind of really like it. There is a massive banked curve that is more banked than Zandvoort, which is kind of nuts, and I think it's cool. It's kind of more reminiscent of like the old Indianapolis.
Yeah, or
banked
the
curve.
original Monza Oval.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very, very cool. It's a very cool place. But I think there's a little bit of chaos that could be in the works with that one. There's some parts, though, that are ridiculously stupid. I think it is way too tight. I think with it being a street circuit, they're going to have to either bulldoze or work around existing infrastructure, which they've sort of done, in the sense that it's only half a street circuit, or maybe 2/3.
Yeah.
Because the large banked corner and some of the like middle section, like the sector 2 basically is entirely purpose-built track. But the other two parts of the track are just existing roads around the FEMA like exhibition center, which kind of makes me think this seems like a proposed Formula E track. Because it's tight, it's windy, it goes around an exhibition centre, and it's a little bit nuts in its proposal, but I do think it could be okay.
Okay.
It'll be a better chaos, it won't actually be good racing, but it will be enjoyable to watch.
Well, to take the talking stick back and give my
go for it.
my number 22 ranking, I have put another street circuit, and it is Monaco. Now, you know, there are obviously people with mixed feelings about this one, and as a topic, it has been beaten to death. So I really just will flick through my personal views on things and talking points. But Monaco has not really produced a good race in like actual race in, I don't think, honestly, decades. The qualifying has always been somewhat entertaining. Qualifying at Monaco is always very special. And obviously you've got a lot of history there, you know, that predates even Formula One itself. You know, the Monaco Grand Prix is one of the longest running motor races that in history, as far as I'm aware, or at least that still runs to this day. But
I think so. Maybe the Indy 500.
Yeah, along with, but like, you know, it's got history, and qualifying has always got something special to it. And I always try to watch Monaco qualifying, even if I'm not that fussed for the race. There are very few, like, I don't get to watch a lot of the races because of my work schedule, but even if the Monaco race is on, I hardly ever pay attention to it because there's just nothing to watch. The fact is, and it might change with the cars obviously now moving towards getting smaller, but just going off of recent memory and, you know, everything up to 2025, or the conclusion of 2025, I should say, you know, the cars are just too big these days. As I say, it's been beaten to death already, the whole topic, the whole conversation, so there's really not much I can add because I do rather just agree with most of what's said online about it. You know, it's just not particularly good for racing at the moment. And another track, my number 21 pick, which I'm not personally fond of, but I know you're a lot more fond of, is the Jeddah Corniche circuit in Saudi Arabia. I know, but
My heart. No, it's fine.
the fact that in my mind, and I know obviously you can add to this later when we get to you, but I've never liked the layout, and I've always felt not that it's unsafe, especially not in the modern era with the very sort of structurally sound, survival focused cars, but it is a concrete corridor with just a lot of sort of flick to the left, flick to the right slightly, but still you're basically just going in a straight line. It's not the worst layout by all means, but it just, for me personally, doesn't really... It's basically just a wiggly version of the Arvus track in Germany from the 1930s. Like it just goes out and then back, but it's more in the shape of a butter knife rather than just a straight sort of line. So it's just not something that I'm particularly fond of. And it's definitely produced much better racing than Monaco, and the qualifying has been sort of consistently good as well. But in my mind, the layout itself is just not... There's not enough to it for me. A lot of the sections are quite repetitive. In Sector 1, just thinking in my mind right now, like there's two like sort of parts of it that are basically just cut and paste to each other. It just doesn't... And sort of mirrored. It doesn't feel like it's been designed for like to challenge drivers. It's got a nice flow to it, I will admit, but that's as much as I can really say in terms of positives on the layout itself. But I'm sure you'll have plenty to add later when we get to you. But in the meantime, what's your number 21 pick?
My number 21 pick is Yas Marina Circuit in Abu Dhabi, which has hosted the season finale basically since its inception in 2009. And what can I say besides this is the biggest downgrade in season finale possible?
Yes.
Yas Marina, I will give it this. Sector 1 is really good. The first sector of the track is actually pretty decent. I have no complaints with it. I think it works. That's the prime place to overtake. So you get some good action going through there. But the other 2/3 of the track, you cannot overtake. There is nowhere. It is just a procession. It was worse beforehand. It used to have basically Sector 2 used to be way blockier. And they've changed it to be more sloping and more curved, but it really hasn't affected that much. It maybe helped at one point, like back in the 2010s, but certainly with the most recent regulation gone, it's just been so dull. And whoever gets out in front just goes out in front and wins usually. It's just not particularly interesting. I will state this, there has of course been plenty of champions crowned there. Well, I say plenty, 3 maybe 4. Yeah, no, 4.
I'm trying to think.
Maybe
yeah 4. I think you're I think you're right, because you've got Vettel, Rosberg,
Verstappen
and Norris. I don't know about Hamilton. Yeah. I think he
I'm
wrapped
pretty
us up.
sure
I think he wrapped us
Hamilton...
up sooner, but I think he...
I think
2014, I think he won in there.
Also, he'd won in 2008 when it was in the season finale.
No. But yeah, I would just like to add before we do ascend, just what you said about the layout. Yeah. It does just remind me of what Kimi Räikkönen famously said about it. To paraphrase, Kimi Räikkönen said, the first few corners are quite nice, but the rest of it is shit.
Yeah.
Those were effectively his words from my recollection. But yeah, back over to you, sorry.
Sorry. Also, I did kind of mince my words. Sector 1 and 2 are okay. Sector 3 is awful, because I forgot that Sector 2 is essentially the entirety of the 2 large straights at the back.
Yeah.
Which is you can overtake there. It's just really dull, because it is a straight line pass with a chicane in the middle. There's not tons going on there.
No.
And now for number 20 for me,
top 20,
it's Monaco. Circuit de Monaco is historic. It is phenomenally historic. It's gorgeous to look at. I'd love to go visit it at some point.
Absolutely, that would be
Qualifying is awesome. Is it a good race? Fuck no. The it is super tight. Nothing ever happens really. You've got the tunnel section. You've got like the swimming pool chicane. You have basically like the I guess those are the only places where something could happen, but it never does.
Yeah.
Like there's so few overtakes that quite literally I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. It was the first time in Formula One history where the top 10 in qualifying finished in the exact same order in the race.
Yeah.
Which is just like, at this point, you've got to do something to spice it up. And so they tried to introduce the
two mandatory pit stops.
The mandatory two-stop, which I think should be a thing for all races, but, that's a conversation for another day.
Yes.
But it just meant that everyone was holding people up for ages and ages, and then George Russell straight-lined a chicane, and that's it. Like, nothing good happens in the Monaco race, but the quality is pretty decent.
Yeah.
It's great to watch.
Yeah. Basically, of the same opinion, more or less.
Yeah.
But my number 20 pick is Qatar. Obviously, I said I ranked it higher, but not by a very great deal.
No.
I really sort of said my piece on Qatar when you were talking as well, because the only sort of positives for me is that the layout itself is quite good, and I think it has got potential. But like I said, it's got potential to be better, but still not great. So
yeah, I mean, one of our plans for this this year is after all the races are done in this new regulation, we're going to run through and rank the races.
Yes,
eventually, and as such, that will kind of it will act as slightly.
We can definitely compare our sort of opinions of the tracks that we're exhibiting now with where the races themselves,
how the races,
actually ended up showing. But I've really got nothing to add to Qatar. You've basically said it perfectly. It's just my personal opinion is it could be better, and that's the only reason it ranks any higher for me. But to get to number 19 on my list, it's a track that has also been mentioned as well. It is indeed Abu Dhabi. There really isn't much for me to add here either. It's a very... the first sector and the second sector to an extent are pretty good. You get some good overtaking zones, and the two straights, obviously, with DRS obviously no longer being a thing, but for a time it meant that you could get a lot of good DRS attacks. But it just, it's not where the season finale should be. And I think that's obviously something that factors into my decision as well, because we'll see where both of us rank Interlagos respectively later, but I do believe vehemently that Interlagos should be the season finale of Formula One, and it has always been better when it was. But yeah, really, like I say, same with Qatar, I've not got much to add on what you said. You put it very well with Abu Dhabi, and the only thing I really had to add was that Kimi Räikkönen quote. So yeah, back over to you.
Yes, for me in 19th, it's Mexico City, or the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. And the simple thing is, with Mexico, it's another circuit where it is just so difficult to pass. It's cool to watch for a qualifying lap. It's not a bad track design. On paper, it looks fine. Like, it looks pretty damn good. But you then realize there's really only 2 points you can overtake feasibly, and that's at the end of the main straight and at the end of the back straight, and that's kind of it. The stylistically, it's fucking awesome. Like, going through the stadium section is one of the coolest parts of any track on the calendar, in my opinion. It's so cool. And I just wish that the actual race itself could be better, but a lot of the time it is a bit of a procession, with the occasional dive bomb that ends up with either someone jumping forward or two people in the mud. But it's not a particularly great race on the whole. There's nothing too bad about it. It's just a lack of overtaking kind of drags it down from being like good. I'd say it's like it's just below good.
Okay. But yeah, I'll get onto my opinions of that shortly, but
Yeah,
if you
no,
want to
that's
move
fine.
us along.
Yes, of course. And so my number 18 is the Marina Bay circuit, or Singapore. First night race ever introduced, and it looks like awesome. Like it's visually really stunning.
It still holds up. It still does.
It does still hold up visually. Unfortunately, it is it is a circuit where the only passes are on the straights or by someone crashing. Which, now that you sit down and think about it, the most memorable moments on in Singapore aren't actually the racing; it's people crashing. It's if I sit down and think about what has made, what great stuff has happened at Singapore. It's the 2017 crash, but with the Ferraris and Verstappen. It's Russell's crash in 2023. It's Stroll's crash in 2023. Like, it's of course Crashgate.
Yes, I was going to say that's the big one.
Yeah, that's the bigger one.
But yeah, no.
But it's kind of just, in theory, it's not horrendous to watch, but the racing kind of doesn't stand out because when you're in, it's basically you have these couple of strips where you can overtake, but it's tough, and everything between is just like tight corners, and that's kind of it. But it is very pretty.
But it is very pretty. But to move along to my number 18, and something that I don't view as quite so pretty, it is the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Now, my issue with Las Vegas is very similar to my issues with Miami. The layout itself, in my opinion, is better than the Miami layout. I think even though it's obviously a lot simpler, and I know that when it first sort of got announced in 2023, a lot of people were comparing it to a pig. But I think I like the layout of Las Vegas. And, I like the idea of, F1 cars hurtling down the Vegas Strip. But the fact of the matter is, much like the setting of Miami, Las Vegas is kind of built upon a throne of being tacky and a bit disgusting. Las Vegas to me just reeks of, early 2000s or, 90s, 80s sort of aging casinos that cater to aging people that sit at the slot machines gormlessly and keep
Old
pulling the
people
lever,
stroking their screens.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's just a bit of a disgusting setting, in my opinion, as well as the fact that obviously the last few races there haven't been necessarily terrible, but in my mind right now, just trying to think back to one to make an example of, I've got nothing. There's nothing really that has inspired much for me thus far, and the only memorable thing for me. Yeah, the only memorable thing for me that's happened so far was when the circuit decided to take a bit of offence to Carlos Sainz's car passing over the top of it and decided to shit out a drain hole cover to destroy the underside of his car. So that's really all I can remember from Las Vegas. So it's just, for me, a little bit of a grimy atmosphere, but nevertheless, a very cool spectacle and not a bad layout. But
do you want to take us up one?
I will. A track that also is not a bad layout at all, in my mind, is Baku. Now, obviously, Baku, most people tend to rank higher, but as someone who just doesn't think much of street circuits myself, it's really pushing the limit for me on how high I can put it. And obviously, you'll see other street circuits coming in very soon on my list. But Baku normally produces much better racing than comparing it to somewhere like Vegas. It's and the qualifying is very unique. Obviously, driving past a World Heritage site so close to it with the sort of uphill section with the castle where Charles Leclerc likes to crash.
City, yeah.
Yes, that's obviously an awesome spectacle. But the fact remains that I think races in Baku have never really been as good. It's a similar situation to Vegas for me. There just isn't. I can't think of one aside from maybe 2018 with the Red Bulls taking each other out that really sticks in my mind. Like, there's nothing that's happened there that's made me go, wow. Like, the last one obviously had a bit
I mean,
of excitement with Oscar Piastri crashing out because he was the championship leader at the time.
I'd say some of the crazy podiums in the earlier days.
Yeah.
When that one year, I swear it was like Stroll, Kvyat, and
yeah,
like Ricardo or something
yeah.
weird like that.
Exactly. No, it is. It's definitely did produce some good stuff like that, but in recent years, I mean, it's like I said, it's not been bad at all. Not to say that it's given us a bad race. It just there's nothing to write home about as far as the races have gone. Aside from I believe it was last year with the Sainz podium in the Williams, which was kind of crazy. But
yeah,
that's the only sort of thing from last year's Baku race that I really remember. There really isn't much else to it. So the races themselves don't provide a great deal of excitement, in my mind at least. And that's just the last sort of 5 years. Maybe going back a little bit further, you got some more unique results. But aside from that, I just can't justify putting it higher when I think there are more deserving placements. But back over to you with your number 17 pick.
My number 17 pick is the Hungaroring in Budapest. Now, this has been around since 86 and has provided some very good racing over the years. However, as of late, it has gone starkly downhill. Because there's not really... It's another track where, unfortunately, there's nowhere to overtake. Your overtaking opportunities are quite literally like the first corner and the second corner, and that is because they are at the end of the main straight. And it's essentially, you'll try a lunge into the first corner. If you can't make it, then you follow through. And as soon as you start exiting Sector 1, that's it. You're not making an overtake. You just try again next lap, I guess. Like, the challenge of the circuit is hanging close enough to the person in front of you to get a run at overtaking on the main straight. And there has been some fantastic races there before, some wild results. A lot of people have had their first race win there, or random pole positions and stuff there. So it's not like it's a completely devoid of anything circuit, and it has been good in past when the cars were smaller and they could follow better, but as of late it has just really fallen off a cliff, so I can't put it any higher. However, of course, could change.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
moving on to number 16
moving on
for
to
you,
number 16, we have got another tight circuit that's hard to overtake, Zandvoort.
Really?
Which is... Zandvoort's an odd one, because you kind of... It's... Once again, there's really only a couple of places you can overtake. And it is literally just like the end of the main straight and into, I think, turn 3, the banked corner. If you do a lunge up the inside, in which case it usually ends with you colliding with whoever went high. And as of late, since it got reintroduced, it's just not been that interesting. There haven't been tons of overtakes. It's been a bit of a procession. Yes, there's been a bit of chaos with rain, but all the memorable moments you think of in Zandvoort is because of something that kind of has nothing to do with Zandvoort. It's like, I sit there and think about the crazy, Pierre Gasly podium in 23. And then... Oh, it was 23 or 24? One or the other. But regardless, that was because of the rain. That was entirely just because of chaos in the rain. You think of Hadjar's podium. He put in a good qualifying, but realistically, had nothing to do with this, the racing on the circuit. He didn't move. He practically did not move in procession. All that happened is Norris detonated in front of him and he got on the podium. But the atmosphere, the actual location itself is really cool. I really want to go visit Zandvoort at some point, and it is unfortunately going to be the last year that it's around this year for the moment.
Yeah, at least for now.
But I just think it doesn't provide, and the Dutch crowd are fantastic, but it doesn't provide anything racing wise that's that spectacular. No.
I'm sure I'll have plenty to say about that later. But in the
Probably.
meantime, my number 16 pick is one that we have already discussed. It is Mexico City. I do agree with what you said. Overtaking opportunities are somewhat limited, and it definitely doesn't provide the best races of the season. But what I will say, it does have some strengths that I think you somewhat overlooked. Most of which I think the track layout as well as the setting are both great. Obviously, I've never driven it in a Formula One car, but driving it in games and things, it just feels nice. It has a nice mix of different corner types. It's relatively sort of challenging while also being fun. It's one of those things that it's just satisfying to take a lap of. And that's one of the things that I really think is a strength. And also, like you were saying a minute ago with the Dutch crowd in Zandvoort, the Mexican crowd and also the way sort of F1 shows up to Mexico, it does it in a really unique and special way. And, maybe that was because Sergio Perez brought a sort of certain level of sponsorship, but you had the mariachi version of the F1 theme song.
That's true. That is really fun.
The Mexican podium celebration. Everything about Mexico is just distinctly a little bit more unique compared to other races. And I don't think it's gimmicky because it's only Mexico that I can really think of that does it in that way, at least. So it definitely it's unique, and that's what I like about it, and that's the only reason I rank it higher. Because, like you said, there's not really a lot else going for it. There's not, it hasn't produced any sort of standout races. There's not as many overtaking opportunities, even somewhere like Baku, which obviously I ranked lower. But there's just a sort of special atmosphere it brings that you don't get elsewhere.
I mean, my question would be, though, would it not be better, because Mexico does have all of this flair to it, would it not be better to have that flair on a better track?
Oh, if another track did, then absolutely. Yeah. But it's just the fact that is the case with Mexico as it stands, and that's what sets it higher in my mind, just to offer my criteria as well.
That's fair. I mean, with different criteria, I don't consider that stuff completely tied to the track.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I just happened to consider a little bit more, but I guess our differing approaches give a reason as to why we have markedly different tracks down here. Indeed. Or at least rankings of them. But to move up to the top 15 now, number 15 for me is Singapore. Once again, we've already discussed this one. You've got it a few places down compared to me. But what I will say to Singapore's strength is, while obviously, I mean, it is also, once again, kind of partly down to my criteria. It does have some big moments, and it also, outside of stuff like Crashgate and, the crashes, like you said, it has produced some really exciting races, really. Obviously, with the Mercedes, not last year, but the year before, chasing down, a year before that even.
Yeah, it was
2023
when they were chasing down
Carlos and Norris. That was a fantastic sort of final act to a race, and that was genuinely nail-biting stuff. And maybe it wasn't to do with the track itself, but it's the fact that it happened there, and also things like Hamilton's crazy 2018 qualifying lap, where a lot was made about a supercomputer predicted that this is the fastest lap that someone can go around the track, and then he's gone faster than it. It's like There's a lot made of that, but it's things like that that make Singapore quite special. And I think also just being the first F1 night race and still having that sort of air of sort of excitement around it. You see the lights come off, and it's obviously something we're a lot more used to today. In Formula One now, with races like Abu Dhabi and Qatar happening at night, and Bahrain in recent memory having happened at night. But also, it makes more of it happening at night with Singapore, if that makes sense. Like, you almost notice it, the fact that it is dark in Singapore, when you don't necessarily clock it in other places. And I think it's because it has always sort of piggybacked off of the whole, Formula One's first night race thing. So I like Singapore. I like the layout, and I like some of the moments it's provided us, and that's why it's my number 15 pick. But unless you've got anything to add, over to you for number 15.
The only thing I'd really add is, while I do agree about the Mercedes chasing down in 23, I also think that people won't have remembered it as fondly were it not for the fact that Russell crashed on the final lap
Maybe.
in that chase. Like, I feel like that was one of the starkly most noteworthy things about that race.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I agree with the lighting thing, especially because I feel like while Singapore is lit up, it's not like Vegas where it is just this constant mass of lights
Yeah.
trying to drag your attention everywhere. And it's not like Qatar or Bahrain or Jeddah where it's just like it is a complex that is flooded in light constantly. And they have to like run it at night for the full race.
Yeah.
I feel like Singapore, it feels like it's more for the spectacle than for the practical. It could be both.
It definitely. I think it definitely works better than somewhere like Vegas, though. Like you say, as much as it is a spectacle to see F1 cars racing at night, it is definitely a better spectacle.
Yeah,
it just feels a little bit more classy, and that's what F1 is.
Yeah,
To me, historically, F1 just is a bit more classy than other. People have like a sort of belief around things like NASCAR, where it's some slightly fat middle-aged blokes driving around in circles for 200 laps. And the fact is, they not to go down a tangent, but like F1 has always meant to be sort of have a pedigree to it, and to see that being preserved somewhat while still being able to give way to gimmicks is something that I very much like. So that's another thing I think that goes in the favour of Singapore. It has a bit more class while still being a spectacle. But
that's fair enough. All right, now on to my pick, which for 15th, it's Shanghai. Shanghai is like the most circuit. It is the most circuit of all time, in a negative way. This will go forth, but it's the most circuit of all time in a negative way, in the fact that I could not tell you a single interesting thing that has happened at a Chinese Grand Prix off the top of my head, especially not in the two most recent ones, that have just been so boring. And it's not like it's hard to overtake. It's got some very good hard places to pass on straights. It's got hard braking zones. It's got like some decent like corner complexes. It's just somehow produces no interesting racing, and I think part of that may be from the width, because it is such a wide track. There is a lot of places for people to go, and so there's not as much of an urgency. Like, for example, you could very easily, off the top of my head, get 3 cars down like the main straight, or even possibly the back straight, side by side with no problem. And not even like in a tight squeeze for a lunge, as in like they could run in succession, or not in succession, like in a line, and it would be fine. Like, there's just, I feel like it produces very little racing. The setting is like the atmosphere is kind of There's the bridge over the main straight, but that's about it. And it's a circuit, it functions. It functions as a track. I don't think I'm not going to lose sleep over its existence. I'm not going to mourn its existence if it goes. I'm very neutral on it.
Okay.
And going up one to 14th is the Vegas Strip Circuit, which I will say this can very easily go down soon. If the races could very easily continue to degrade in quality, but I certainly think as of the last, there's only been 3 races. The 3 races that have happened so far. First one was good, brilliant battle between Perez and Leclerc. Yes. Even if Max was kind of winning it all, but the fantastic battling between those two was great. And of course Carlos getting the cover in his car, which is entirely punishment for being a Ferrari driver. It unfortunately just comes with the job.
It's just what happens.
It just happens. The other thing would be the Mercedes suddenly coming out of nowhere in 2024 to absolutely power through, like Hamilton's climb from down on the grid to second.
Yes.
I mean, Russell obviously just launched off into the distance and won, but I think I appreciate Vegas because it's such a departure condition-wise. There's, compared to other tracks, Vegas is very cold, which means that which is actually something I didn't mention about Mexico. Mexico has a change in the altitude, so aero works a bit different. It's a similar kind of thing, but with tires for Vegas, in the fact that temperatures are very different due to how cold the actual circuit is, especially run at night, which brings a bit of spice to it. Do I think it's a little tacky? Yeah, but if you're gonna do tackiness, I think Vegas is the place. You know, it's like I think there is at least some amount of fairness for it being tacky, and there's some stuff I don't mind. I like the limo at the end, like the podium limo or cool down limo is pretty fun.
It is different. I will give you that.
It's different. I don't hate, like, in the first year they did this long drawn out like
opening ceremony thing. Yeah,
opening ceremony thing. If they did that every year, I'd 100% get sick of it. But for the one novelty time they did it, I was like, it's fine. You know, it's gimmicky, but who cares?
Yeah.
And overall, I think it could be a lot worse. And I think that if racing could very easily get worse there, because it is not the most complicated circuit. And for example, if the cars for the new regulation are able to follow really good down a straight, the track is full of long straights, and what we initially thought was going to be the problem with the track will be in the fact that it will just be everyone passes on the straights, and then you wait for the next straight, and then everyone passes back, and it's just a bit chaos in a non-good way. It's
but anyway, to progress things along to my number 14 pick, I have put the Gilles Villeneuve Canadian Grand Prix circuit, which I very much like. I really like this circuit, but much like you were saying about sort of the last few tracks that you've listed, really, there just hasn't been a lot of standout races there lately, for me at least. Like, nothing really, there's no sort of major events that scream to me. This last year that just went, 2025, the race was really just sort of a procession, from my recollection. There just wasn't really a lot made of it. But I really, this, like you say with Vegas being able to go down, this track could easily go up quite high on my list, because I really like the layout, you know, and it's got sort of a certain something to it, especially with things like the Wall of Champions, things like that. It's a great track, and I would like to be able to rank it higher, but it just, in recent years, just hasn't really produced anything particularly stand out in the races. But like I say, I mean, I hope that will change, and obviously you've got this ranked higher up, so I'm sure we can come to you on that later. But to move up to number 13, this was a bit more of an open discussion, because we have both placed the same track here, and that is the Barcelona Catalunya circuit.
I'm pretty sure we discussed this at length, so we discussed this at length in the last episode about Barcelona, so I think we'll skip over this.
Yeah.
But I want to mention that, like I said, that Shanghai is the most circuit of all time in a negative way. Barcelona is the most circuit of all time in a completely neutral way. Like, it is just the track.
Yes.
Whichever car is functionally best wins the race almost always.
Yes.
The conditions are fairly consistent. It's fine. We've had in recent memory 2 crazy races.
Yeah.
And that is 2012 when Pastor Maldonado won.
Yeah, when he won,
Williams. And then 2016 where the 2 Mercedes crashed and Verstappen won in his first race for Red Bull. Those are the only 2 noteworthy races I can think of off the top of my head.
But if you want to sort of hear more in depth about our opinions of Barcelona as a track, and indeed as the circuit that was typically used for pre-season testing up to recently, you can tune into last week's episode where we discussed the not so private test that occurred the other week. So yeah.
Yes, the shakedown test.
Indeed. But to move things along to your number 12 pick, let's hear it.
Yes, and my number 12, I have gone for the Jeddah Corniche circuit in Saudi, and ignoring the whole Saudi thing, I think the location is brilliant on the coast of the Red Sea. It's really cool, like visually. I think it looks very pretty. I don't think it's quite as it's not quite as visually appealing as like Singapore when it comes to night races. It also, I think, has much better racing than Singapore because of the amount of like chicanes, the two hard braking zones, and a lot of long straights, quote unquote. I also think it's got the added bonus that qualifying around there is incredibly gripping, just because of how close they have to ride to some of those walls, and when it goes wrong around Jeddah, it goes wrong, which is quite enjoyable experience-wise. I do think that, I was talking about the visual style, I definitely think that visual style goes down every year the more and more gimmicks they add, because I'm pretty sure, like, they had a drone swarm recently, and I was just like, I don't care for this in the slightest. And then, yeah, I think that's all I've really got to say about Jeddah. I think it is good. I like it. It's high speed. It's quite gripping. Races there so far have been pretty good, besides 2023, which was incredibly boring. Yeah.
Well, my number 12 pick is, I think, the best of the street circuits. It is the season opener last year and this year. It is Albert Park.
Indeed.
I really like Albert Park. I really like the layout. Much like I said in Mexico City, you know, everything flows nicely. And obviously, I'm not an F1 driver, but driving it on sims or games or anything, it always just seems to just drive really nice. You know, every corner just comes after the other. It's seamless, and, you know, you get a nice sort of blend of corner types as well. And it has produced some pretty good races in the last few seasons. Albert Park is just one of those tracks that has got a decent amount of history to it. You know, it's always been great fun. I think, you know, it's better as the season opener as well. Like it sort of what it is now and was previously before Bahrain. But yeah, no, I don't have loads to say about Albert Park off the top of my head, really. But there is, you know, it's produced a lot of good racing in recent memory as well, and also just it's a little bit special, you know, in a way that I can't really put into words. It's a nice layout. It always seems to be pretty good for the races, you know, more often than not. And even whether that's for chaos or for good racing, it could go either way. That's what I love about it. But yeah, Albert Park is in that manner, I think, distinctly Australian, and it's brilliant. So yeah,
fair enough.
It's unpredictable in a good way, but yeah, another.
Do you want to take us up to 11?
I will indeed, and it's another track that I will praise the layout of. Maybe, you know, okay. the setting is a setting, but the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, is a brilliant track, and I think it's a great track whether you're racing in Formula One, whether you're racing in NASCAR even. It is a great track with a great layout that always produces some really good racing, and especially produces some great, like, visuals. You know, you think of the Charles Leclerc sunset lap a few years ago, just beautiful, just so breathtaking.
Just the S's in general.
Yes, the S's. I would say just part of the layout.
Good seeing anyone going through the S's.
It is. It's just. It always just. Even if the races are, they haven't been boring recently. If I must say, the sprint and the main race itself last year were pretty good for whatever reason. You know, whether it be in the sprint with the McLarens having a bit of fisticuffs or whatever. But you know, the track itself, just it is always the cars have just looked so good going around it. They've always had that F1 car sort of look to them as they go around. It's always sort of demonstrated the very best of a Formula One car going around a circuit at high speed, and that's what I love about it. You know, whether or not the race is, you know, nothing to write home about, or, you know, good or really good, they'll always be fun to watch. You know, just to see the cars going around, and that's, you know, it's a very basic opinion, but I think it's something that we don't, as Formula One fans, really appreciate enough. Just seeing F1 cars at their very best being able to reach that point. That's something that is just, it's not unique to this track, of course, but it's something that with more and more street circuits, it's why I hate street circuits, really. With more and more of them coming, that you just don't quite get that with street circuits. Maybe Monaco, but I think that's also just because it's Monaco, and it's obviously got that sort of special factor in qualifying. But yeah, COTA really is very just good at demonstrating F1 cars at their best. And obviously with the terrain changes, the layout, the atmosphere, the crowds, everything about it is just very fun. And if, obviously we have 3 Grand Prix in America these days, but if we could only have one, that would be preferable, and I'd definitely like it to be in Austin. So that's my opinion there. But if you want to move across to your number 11.
Yes, of course. And I definitely stand by that if there is to be one US Grand Prix, it's got to be COTA.
Absolutely.
But no. So for me, number 11 is the Baku City Circuit. Now, I always had a little bit of a soft spot for the track. I do quite like it, but it is steadily getting worse each year. Since it joined in 2016, 2017? About then-ish.
Yeah, 2016.
I used 2016 as the European,
yeah.
and then it became the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. But it's always been a little ball of chaos. It's massively fast with these long straight, these massive straights, high-speed sections, the castle section, some of the build-up to that. It's tight, but not tight enough that it's impossible to overtake. There's been plenty of good racing around there. It is getting worse as time goes on, definitely because the cars are struggling to follow more, and in straight line, in a straight line, DRS passing is kind of the only way these days.
Yeah.
And even then, it was kind of struggling, but that's maybe more because of the recent car regulation. So that this could change, but if we're on the same course as before, it's just going to go further and further down. But the city itself, Baku, is really cool. The walled city that you drive around is phenomenal. Castle section is iconic. Obviously, there was lots of teething issues. Same with Vegas, where there was the cover that came up. But you can't say that the fast flowing bit through, under the trees, isn't beautiful.
Absolutely not.
It is also really pretty in a very more natural and kind of way.
Of all the street circuits, I do think it's got the best setting. Just the way it flows through World Heritage sites while also very visibly being in a city, a capital city at that, and just having that sort of you're weaving through buildings, and now you're weaving through a castle, a medieval castle, and then you're going through, and now you're under nature and trees. It is beautiful, the scenery. And obviously, also, like you say, it could go down further, and obviously that was a lot of the reasoning as to why it's further down for me. But the setting itself is absolutely beautiful.
And there's also the elevation change, just how much it ramps uphill and down. It's quite cool. It's not as much as other circuits, but it's still cool regardless. And I think it's pretty neat. But it could very easily go down if things stay the same, or go up if the racing gets better for it. All right. Now, number 10. Cracking into the top 10, we have got the Red Bull Ring in Austria. And like I've said with Barcelona and Shanghai before, this is the most racetrack, but positive, in the sense that you really can't... I
love the way you've determined these.
Well, it's kind of just... It is a really, it's a solid track, but there's nothing particularly special about it that makes it such a good track. It's just well designed. It's essentially just the massive uphill section in the first sector. You've got the nice, straight along the back. You've got, the overtaking down into the corner at the end of that straight, and then follow around. You've got that final section going around to the pit straight, which caught everyone out on track limits that one year, which was really funny. First corner's good for a bit of overtaking. Corner at the top of the hill is good for a bit of chaos. It's kind of just good Crowd's always good. View is good. It's in the Styrian Hills, which is really pretty. Red Bull always bring their A game in the visual flair for it. They'll have people skydiving and stuff like that. And doing all sorts of tricks around the place. They know what they're doing at the Red Bull Ring, but I can't point to any one thing and say this is what makes it special. It's just a very damn good race circuit.
Yeah. Well, to go to my top 10 first entry, and going off of what you were saying, track of all time, I have got Shanghai. Obviously, I know that you've ranked it a lot lower, but for me, Shanghai, the only reason it's even cracking the top 10 in mine compared to something like Kota, which I objectively like more, is because I feel like the Shanghai layout is just so well balanced. I mean, your description of it being a track of all time isn't, far off, but I think it's, like, in a good way. It's a strength. And I feel like there's a lot that could happen with Shanghai. It just hasn't yet. And obviously it's easy to speculate, but it's definitely a good track layout. I think that there's decent opportunities for overtaking zones, especially with the newer, smaller cars. I think not to get too deep into predictions, but I think this year's Chinese Grand Prix will be pretty exciting because I think the track is good. And obviously we've got newer cars, new regs. I think it's going to be a good race, and it's a very simple sort of justification. If it isn't, then Shanghai is going to tumble down my list very quickly. I really do think the layout is good. It's nice sort of balance of different corner types. It's really what you want from a circuit. It's not too much of one thing or the other. So, yeah, Shanghai, just very simple reasoning behind that. But to move on to another track that I have a very sort of simple justification for is the number 9 pick for me, the Hungaroring. Now, like we said, maybe not more recently, with the last few races being a little bit less interesting, but the Hungaroring has always been that race that really just throws up something out of left field. Whether it be Ocon winning in 2021, it really just it always gives something. It's never the most exciting race on the calendar. That's what I need to stress. But I think the layout is good. I think it flows nicely. I think it too has a pretty good sort of, maybe not the same sort of balance of corner types, but it's definitely got a good variety of corners. And I think with the new cars again, it will be a better race than it has been in the last few years. But that is obviously speculative, and much like Shanghai, it could very easily move down the order in the same way Canada or Baku or mine could move up. So there's still more to be made of that. But, I think the Hungaroring, and this is as someone who is a proper purpose-built circus purist, I think the Hungaroring is a good track, and I'd like to see a good race there this year. So that's really all I have to add on to that discussion. But to move over to your number 9.
My number 9 is the Bahrain International Circuit. Now, I have moved this down a little bit as of recent, because I think the thing with Bahrain is it is a really good track, and the corner there's so many like good places to overtake, so many good corner complexes, straights with hard braking zones at the end, some fantastic stuff, and it's been pretty good in the last set of regs. I remember like the fantastic battling between Leclerc and Verstappen in 22, the brilliant like Alonso climbing up to 3rd in 23. Like there has been, as of recent, some very good races. It still has it kicking, and even going back, like it's been around since 2004, and it's had some phenomenal racing. But since testing has started being done at Bahrain, I feel it's slowly getting a little worse.
Yeah.
2024 was not it wasn't bad, but it wasn't anything special. And 2025 was pretty boring. And One of the only things I can really link it to is that they've got more data, so they know exactly when to pit it, especially because it's at the start of the season. So it is with those cars. It's not even like they've tested there at some point.
Yeah,
it's like
there's not like upgrades have been brought with them.
No, it's like early in the season, so they may have a couple of upgrades, but they know the data of the track. They know how to run in it, and so it kind of. Once again discussed in the past episode, the more data I think they have for a track or a race, the less interesting it becomes, because it becomes so much more formulaic. They know exactly what to do and how each situation will play out. Which may speak into my knowledge of how F1 teams and the data behind it works, but I think it's definitely gone down over time. However, there's been some fantastic battles, and I think very easily with the new regulation, it could shoot up there. It could still go up. I'd say at least 3 spots, in my opinion, because it's a really good track.
It is. But to move things along with you.
Yeah, number 8, I have gone for Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada, and that is mostly based on races as of recent there have been but they have been memorable. The actual battle for the lead, whoever has qualified on pole has pretty much always ended winning the race, but the actual battling in circuit has been phenomenal. The Wall of Champions is amazing. The hairpin down at the far end of the circuit is amazing. That flowing early, first sector is brilliant to watch. It's such a good spectacle, and you get some great overtaking going down into the first corner complex into the Wall of Champions. I mean, we can't forget Albon's phenomenal double overtake from a couple of years back. That was insane. You get some wild stuff like that. You'll get it's one of the tracks that has very variable conditions, so you quite often get torrential rain that appears out of nowhere and then vanishes, and as such it throws a spanner in the works and makes everything a bit more interesting strategy wise. And I could definitely see it going down, because as of recent the races haven't been so great.
No,
but I would say with the changes this year, that long straight, if the cars follow better, that the long straight and the pit straight are going to be fantastic to watch.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, that for me, this circuit I love, and it could go a lot higher on my list if the races started getting better. It is purely just Canada really hasn't produced great sort of races with a lot to write home about lately. But nevertheless, in spite of this, to move along, I have put the Red Bull Ring at my number 8. And I really haven't got a lot to add to the discussion because, like you said, you put it so well, it's a good track. There's not really, one factor in my mind that sort of makes it that good track. It's just got a nice layout. Everything is conducive. It works together and it flows nicely, but it still sort of throws itself up, keeps you on your toes. And also, races there have been, good. Maybe once again, not something to write home about, but they've been consistently pretty good. I would like to say, on just as a whole. And like I said, I have you with a lot of my picks. Obviously, a lot of the dedicated circuits have gone higher, so you've already glossed over a lot of what I was going to talk about anyway. So I really haven't got much to add there. But number 7, were ranking higher once again on my list than it was yours, is Bahrain. I love this track. I always have. It is definitely my favourite of the Middle Eastern tracks, and I think the best of them as well, objectively. The layout is competent, it flows, it produces some great overtaking spots, across the track. It has got that nice balance of corner types, whether they're low speed, medium, or high speed corners. That first sector coming off the sort of a little back straight sort of section into sector 2. It's great. It has a lot of sort of variation to it. It just like you say, the issue with it is with it being moved to the testing center, the races have gotten more dull. And that is sad because prior to this, races like 2022 and 2023, they threw up a lot of excitement. Both 2022 and 2023 had that retirement from a major driver, whether it was believe it was Leclerc in 23. No, it was Sainz in 23, I think. No, it was Leclerc. Leclerc in 23, and then Verstappen in 22. Someone who was competing at the front is now out of the race, and that's allowed for something like Alonso. Really, even as a day one glazer myself, he absolutely carried the 2023 Bahrain Grand Prix. The overtakes and battling he was performing on the track were just mesmerising. And that's what Formula One's about. And that's what Bahrain, I think, gets to demonstrate. It's just a great track that normally, until recently at least, has produced some very good racing. And I really hope that it is able to continue doing so in spite of them using it as a testing ground. But nevertheless, I am hopeful. And since it is one of my favourite tracks, I would very much like to see that the cars can still hurtle around without being too boring in the process. So, over to you.
Perfect. So for me, number 7, I have gone for COTA, the Circuit of the Americas. Much like you said, it is a very good purpose-built facility. The S's and the track layout itself, it's brilliant watching cars go around there. And even then, races as of recent have been pretty good.
Yeah.
The battle, last year's the sprint kind of did it in because a lot of the action just went out there.
Yeah.
But the years before with the fight between Verstappen and Norris, you've had Leclerc absolutely wiping the floor. You had Raikkonen winning his final race
2018.
back in 2018. You've had some pretty decent stuff at COTA over the years, and it's very good for other series as well. It's pretty, as you mentioned, NASCAR. I also say for WEC, it was pretty decent with the Lone Star Le Mans. But I just think it's a damn solid circuit that has some very great changes in elevation, provides great racing, and a great spectacle on the whole. Though apparently the infrastructure for actually being at the racetrack isn't that great. So
that was a negative for me. Like I said, with the setting, it just yeah. But no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And moving things along.
For me, number 6, it is the Suzuka circuit in Japan. And now, Suzuka has history. It has phenomenal races in its catalogue. It has some of the most incredible battles and chaos and events that have happened in the past. The big issue is that is the past. And Suzuka has not provided a good race in a while. And while that may have been because of the ground effect era, and we shall see, it's entirely possible that Suzuka moves up a little bit, but probably not too much with the new regulations. But I cannot actually put my finger on the last good race at Suzuka. Probably, if I'm going to be honest, it was back in 2014.
That's fair.
But I just can't think of. Oh, sorry, not 2014. I meant 2013.
I was going to say prior to the turbo hybrids.
Not 2014. Yeah, no, that was very much not a good race.
No, I've only just clocked that myself.
Yeah, no.
Good save.
No, I'm not sure if I'd call it a good save. But, regardless, moving swiftly onwards.
Yes, on that note. But for me, number 6, it is Zandvoort. Now, obviously, we have very differing opinions on this one because I really like the layout. I think the layout has that sort of element of slightly mental while still being a very sort of competent design, a well-designed racetrack that flows nicely, has a very neat layout with a good sort of balance of corner types. It normally produces some great races. The atmosphere there is, I would argue, second to none. The Dutch fans, the way they show up and the way they spray Agent Orange everywhere, it's just phenomenal, And we do see something to a similar extent in other locations, but just I'd argue that it is at its peak in Zandvoort, because even in Silverstone, where you get all the British fans show up, they're not spraying whatever equivalent substance of a possible chemical nature everywhere when their drivers win. But I digress. Yeah, Zandvoort, and even just the bank. I think the banked corner. Obviously, that's the thing a lot of people know Zandvoort for mostly, but I think it also sums it up nicely because a lot of tracks don't really have that banking. That's something you don't really see on most sort of like Formula One circuits, but it's one of the things that makes it unique in my mind, and it just has a bit of madness to it that I really like, and I think it with the new smaller cars, it'll open the track up a little bit more as well for better racing, and that's my hope. So yeah, I really like Zandvoort, and I really think it'll be better. But
I definitely agree on the Dutch fans. Yes. I think that but I just think the circuit itself, Zandvoort, while the atmosphere is great, it may be better for the new regulations, but I don't expect it to be much better. So realistically, I think maybe a new Dutch circuit or try and repurpose like Assen or something like that.
For me, Zandvoort, I really love the layout, and I think it is good, but it could descend down my list if I am proven wrong. And maybe it'd be interesting to compare our track rankings to where we think what we know from the races once we've seen them all later this year. Yeah. But yeah, moving up to the top 5 now, the big ones. And I have put Suzuka. Much like you said, it is a track with a lot of history that has produced some fantastic races and some incredible moments. You think, obviously, Senna and Prost, in 89, 90, both produced some sort of very, exciting results. And obviously, getting further along, you have like early 2000s, Alonso 130R overtake, things like that. It's always had that sort of streak of craziness to it. Something mental's always happened there. At least that was the case. It just, as much as Suzuka has a great layout, it's just not been as good. It's not thrown up those oh my god moments lately, and that's sad because it obviously has. We well know it has the capacity to do that. So I'm hopeful, but cautiously so. I'd say. I think I'm not getting my hopes up because recent history has shown us that Suzuka. Not that it hasn't got it anymore, it just hasn't shown it.
It's just not. I don't think it's great for the current generation of cars. So hopefully, because it's got all the pieces, and I mean it's a similar story with what I said with Shanghai. It's got all the pieces to be a good track, but it just somehow isn't at the moment, and that's kind of disappointing.
But yeah, over to you. To start off your top 5?
Start off my top 5, I have gone for Monza. Now, I may get mildly crucified for this. Monza is a very good track, and top 5. But I do think that the races have been less interesting as of late, and a lot of mine is ranked on how good they've recently been. But historically, well, a lot of tiebreakers have been on how good it has recently been. Historically, Monza is phenomenal. Some incredible racing action there. It's the home of Ferrari. It's with one of the oldest tracks in the world. And the old banking at the circuit is always such a fun thing to see. It's so iconic. It's so enjoyable to watch the cars go around on quali laps. You always get a bit of chaos.
Yeah.
You've got the hard braking zone down at the chicane at turn 1. It's really good stuff. But I will say, as of late, it has been less interesting. But that will not. I wouldn't say it's bad. I would just say that with the amount of history behind it, it's kind of upsetting that the most recent races, the only noteworthy thing I can remember is Antonelli going into a wall and Piastri doing that phenomenal overtake on Norris.
Yeah. Well, anyway, to move along.
Oh, yes, of course. All right,
still you.
At number 4, it is Spa. Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. And Spa is an incredible circuit. It is phenomenal. There is no part of that track that is not perfect for motorsport. Eau Rouge Raidillon, honestly, it is obviously one of the best corner complexes, probably the best corner complex in the world. Besides maybe like the corkscrew at Laguna Seca.
In terms of being iconic, at least, yeah.
In terms of being iconic, I think it's got to be up there.
Yeah.
And the thing with like Spa is phenomenal. The bus stop chicane, everything about it is like noteworthy and iconic and weird. It's such a brilliant track for anything but Formula One at the moment. And I pray every day, I pray that Spa gets the sauce back, because it's just gone at the moment. It has so much history. It is so good in every other motorsport series that comes to like the track, but for some reason it cannot cook up a good current time Formula One race. I genuinely, like, we're going, you know, if you think of what happened last year, nothing. Like, nothing interesting happened last year's race. What happened in 2024's race? Russell just, like, did a one-stop and then got disqualified. What happened in 2023's race? Gasly got a sprint podium? And that's about it? What happened in 2022's race? Nothing. What happened in 2021's race? Literally nothing. It barely ran.
Yeah.
I guess Russell got a podium in his Williams, but it only kind of counts.
Yeah, I mean, fucking Mazepin got the fastest lap, so
yeah,
make of that what you will.
Like, Spa, as of late, it's provided nothing, which sucks for how incredible a circuit is. And I really hope that this new generation of car finds something.
Yes.
If it's better, better in a straight line for overtaking, perfect. There's so many good spots for that. Like at the straight at the top of Eau Radion.
Not Wellington Straight. That's fucking Silverstone.
Not Wellington Straight. Yeah,
I'll say not Wellington Straight. So I know exactly the one you're talking about. So I was getting ready to jump into one of my mentions next.
No, yeah. But no, it's a really good track, and I really want it to be better.
Yeah. Well, going over to my number 4, it's not Silverstone yet, as much as I was ready to talk about that. But the reason I'm ready to talk about that is because I really don't have much more to say about Monza, which is my number 4 pick. You really, once again, have taken the words out of my mouth and hit the nail on the head. Monza is iconic. It is special. It is hallowed ground, especially for a Ferrari fan such as us. But its races haven't been the most interesting lately. Not to say they've been bad at all, but you think for a track that's got so much... I don't want to use the word aura because of the way the internet has perverted it as of late. But
please do not.
But in the traditional sense of the word, for a track that has got so much aura around it, it is genuinely kind of upsetting almost that it hasn't produced some great races. And while that might be hypocritical, because obviously, spoiler alert, I've ranked Spa higher, you know, for me to say that about Monza and not the same about Spa necessarily. But Monza just hasn't really shown the best of itself lately. But with not much more to add, I move on to my first podium place. And that is Silverstone. Silverstone obviously has, I think, the most history out of any F1 track. Obviously, the first ever Formula One race happened at Silverstone. I mean, the layout was very different back then, but it still was Silverstone. It's got that storied history, that sort of legendary status around it. It's one of, obviously, the top 3 or 4 tracks that have been on the calendar the most since the first F1 season. It's got a bit of everything. It's got a great layout with, you know, sectors that each identify themselves as differently from the last, while still flowing into one another nicely. It's always produced some great races with some awesome moments as well. You think, you know, we're very lucky as British fans, and Lewis Hamilton is obviously the king of Silverstone, whether it be him finishing on 3 wheels or putting on one of the greatest drives in Formula One history in 2008 in the pouring rain. You just think Silverstone has always demonstrated sort of what Formula One is about. While it might not be, obviously, my favourite circuit, if someone were to ask me, you know, what is Formula One, like, how do I get into it, where am I going to start, I'd say watch X race at Silverstone, depending on, you know, what they are looking for necessarily. whether they're looking for that sort of classic sort of races or the more recent ones, Silverstone normally is that sort of calendar event that just demonstrates the very best of Formula One, at least the most consistently, and that's why it's number 3 on my list. But over to you for yours.
Indeed, and like you were saying about like that it delivers. I would say these top 3, the way that like some of the bottom ones, it's that you always know it's going to be a dull race. These top 3 for me, they always deliver.
Yes.
Like I cannot remember. Like I was saying, for like some of the other circuits, it's like I can't remember when the last good race is. For these next tracks, I can't actually remember when the last bad race is. And in number 3, much higher than you put it.
Yes.
It's Albert Park.
Obviously, I think
Park circuit,
not to interrupt, but I think this is the clearest demonstration of our 2 different ranking criterias.
Yes. It's a massive, like 9 spots higher or something like that.
Mine's number 12, yours is number 3.
Yeah, it's number 3. Albert Park is the perfect amount of chaos, I think. It is a fast-paced, like high-speed street circuit, but it still has good overtaking spots. It still has chicanes where you can pass. It still has hard braking zones where you can take different lines around. It still has that massive flowing back section.
Yeah.
That like leads round into, oh god, what is the turn number? I don't know off the top of my head. I've forgotten.
Oh no.
Like turn 9 and 10. That's it. It's like at the end of that massive long flowing section, that like tight 2 corners, it's really, really good. There is not a single, there is basically no corner on Albert Park that you cannot at least attempt a good overtake at.
Yes.
Like it is fantastic for that. And layout wise, I think since they refined it back in like 23 or 22, I think they've hit the nail full on the head. And
it's nicely balanced as a circuit.
It is easily the best street track.
Yes.
Because it's not, one of the biggest reasons is because it's not actually built on like tight little like in-city roads. It is built on the roads around a park.
Yeah. So
they are quite wide and sweeping, and it just provides such good racing year in, year out.
Indeed.
And yeah, so moving on to number 2 for me, it is in silver position. It's Silverstone.
That was something.
It was ass. You can say it was ass.
I was gonna say that was it was a little bit wank. I can't lie, but you know, it was funny. It was funny.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Silverstone, it delivers once again. Changeable conditions, with it being Britain, great British weather.
Check.
It can rain for like 30 seconds, bin it down, change up everything. Strategy all goes out the window. It's historic.
Check.
We've had phenomenal races there throughout history. Obviously, they've changed things around with some of the other tracks, but it always comes back to Silverstone. Every time they try and step away, they always come back, and it's for a reason. It's because the fantastic corner complexes. You know, you've got Maggots and Beckett's. You've got like some absolutely iconic landmarks. I mean, like the Wellington Straight, as we mentioned earlier.
As we mentioned earlier. You know,
like
famously in Spa, like we were going to say.
yeah. Like it is a very... It's like hard to put into words just how generally enjoyable Silverstone is.
It is just something special, isn't it?
You can't... It is maybe mild bias because we are British, but you can't find another track that is that consistently good in like a very neutral way. Like it's a incredible just a racetrack. If Albert Park was like the best high chaos track, Silverstone is like the best low chaos track besides 2022 as of late, because that was a little bit
was very chaotic.
But
on the start.
It's mainly the rain throws a bit of a spanner in the works, but a bit of chaos is always fun.
Well,
but no.
back over
I think
to me
that's
for
it.
my final two. I've got in second place, silver position, Interlagos. Now, Interlagos in my mind is the track that should host the season finale always. It never
Yes.
disappoints. No matter what the conditions are in Interlagos, the layout, everything about it is just so chef's kiss, It's a great track. It's hard to put into words because obviously I have great admiration for it as a track, for the racing it produces, for the history, for everything. It's just, it might not have the same sort of storied kind of history in the popular sort of minds of most fans that Silverstone, Spa or Monza have, but it's still got that history. It's been a great track for many, many years, and it's always produced as a baseline, a good race, and at its best, some of the best races in history. I mean, you think people still obviously talk about the 2008 season finale because it was so crazy, but it's no shock to me that it happened in Interlagos because Interlagos is just something special. It's a very classy,
It is indeed.
It is the Formula One track, if you ask me. As much as Silverstone is what I would suggest to people, like I said, watch this race if you're trying to get into Formula One. Interlagos is the one where I'd go, right, now you know what you're looking at. Now watch this. You'll actually appreciate it. Because Interlagos always just demonstrates the very best of the cars, the drivers, what an F1 track can be. There's so much to it, but it always delivers. So that goes into number 2 for me. But in number 1, and like I said earlier, it's a bit dubious because it's hypocritical when compared to what I was saying about Monza. But in number 1, I have put Spa-Francorchamps, obviously the Belgian Grand Prix. Like you said, it is one of the most incredible, iconic motor racing venues in history. Obviously, it's got a history that goes back so far, whether that be with motorsports generally or Formula One. But also the layout, everything about it. You think of those corners, you see them in your mind when you picture them. It's so easy to place yourself there because it's so familiar almost to an F1 fan. And I think I do look through rose-tinted glasses. I know I do, because the issue with Spa, I think, is its conditions more than anything else. The conditions in Spa have always been tetchy, I will say. Basically, Spa is known as, if not it is one of the wettest tracks on the calendar. By that I mean it is most likely to rain at Spa more than it is anywhere else on the F1 calendar. And that does show. I mean, 2021, like we referenced earlier, that was red flagged and ultimately finished early under a safety car because of the rain. It was just too torrential. But if it weren't for the rain, I think Spa would always produce something special to watch. That would be Formula One demonstrating what Formula One is, what it should be, what it could be, and what it has been. And I don't think there's a track that really encompasses, for me personally, what motorsports as well as F1 really, should call home in terms of a racetrack. So, yeah, Spa for me is very special. And I do admit to, looking through rose-tinted glasses, but it is just one of the most incredible racing venues, and I think at its best. And, if we have a dry race this season, fingers crossed, we will see poetry in motion. But anyway, the ball is over to you for your final pick. I believe you've only got one track missing, so...
I do indeed, and if you've been an eagle-eared listener, then you should.
Or if you're just not thick.
Or if you just know what the circuits are off the top of your head, then you'll know that my number 1 pick is Interlagos. It is the best season finale for an F1 season. It always will be. And it's so unfortunate that we don't get it anymore. On paper, it shouldn't produce racing as good as it is. There's nothing particularly spectacular about the layout. It's simple, it's flowing, and it's got some decent corner complexes, But on paper, there's nothing that looks so standout, yet year on year, it delivers some of the best racing action you'll ever see. From pit lane to podium, from 17th to first place, the last lap battle between Alonso and Perez, Russell's first win.
Yeah.
There's some insane stuff as of late. And even going back, you talked about the 2008 finale. Stuff like that, it's going to stick around forever.
Yes.
And I think that there is no better track to encapsulate the race, like the good, solid racing, like close racing battles, combined with the chaos that comes with the rain and changes of strategy than Interlagos. You just cannot beat it. And the Brazilian crowd, the atmosphere, everything about it is so good. It cannot be beat, in my opinion, for just the performance it puts on. And that's completely ignoring the other series that it's also in, where it provides very good racing too.
But that concludes our little list.
That concludes our little list, which turned out into a very big list, actually.
What I was going to say is many of you will have heard earlier that we were not only ranking the tracks in this episode, but also we would make mention of where we rank each driver. And just in the interest of time, if you want to find that, our opinions on the drivers on the 2026 calendar, you will indeed have to go to our Instagram. What a shameless plug. But yes.
It is a very shameless plug.
At Tyre Straights Podcast on Instagram, that is where you will find our respective driver rankings, as well as a nice sort of list of the track rankings that you could follow along, just to maybe give a bit more of an easier visual than just hearing our voices.
It's a shameless plug, but also we have waffled far too much, and we still need to cover a brief discussion on the other series before we wrap up this podcast.
Indeed.
Right.
So
yeah, the list over. Now, a quick little other series.
Yes.
a short view to the past week.
Now, last week, in the NASCAR world, we saw the first 2026 Cup Series race. Now, this was a non-championship round, and it's possibly one of my favourites, because the Cookout Clash is just mental. To put it into perspective for you, Dootson, where it takes place in a stadium, not a very large one at that. And
which track is it?
This is at Bowman Gray, and there are bigger roundabouts that you will have encountered than this track, and it's just so chaotic. All the drivers get very heated and angry with one another. There's even more sort of spinning and sort of crashing, especially when it got wet. But it also produced, admittedly, kind of counts, kind of doesn't. But we got a new race winner with Ryan Preece, he's won races in other sort of NASCAR series, but not in the Cup Series, which is like the Formula One of the NASCAR world. So as much as it is only a non-championship round, it is still quite big, and it is great fun. And obviously, we soon have the Daytona 500 to look forward to. So there's a lot of speculation going into that, and that's always a very exciting moment on any global motorsports calendar. So I would implore even someone who's just a little bit curious about NASCAR to tune in at least for the Daytona 500, maybe catch the highlights from the Cookout Clash, just see how mental it was. And over to you.
Fair enough. That's the weekend after next, isn't it? The 500.
I would need to check that. I think no, it's the 15th. It's the 15th. So yeah. It's coming up. 15th. Coming up.
Okay, so it is this week coming just after testing.
Yeah,
that's fine. Then in which case, for me, I just want to briefly mention while we're on what's happening in the week coming from when we're recording this. We've got the Jeddah E-Prix doubleheader for Formula E, which should be interesting, as it's been decent the past couple of years, but nothing too crazy. And then Rally Sweden, which we shall see if Oliver Solberg continues his dominant streak. The only other notable thing that has happened since the last episode has been the MotoGP Sepang test. Essentially, after they did their initial shakedown, all of the bikes have gone out, minus a couple of people who are injured or just non-attending, a mix of both, to the circuit in Sepang, which I very much miss for F1. And they have done testing on the bike, shaking it down, and surprisingly, Marc Marquez crashed.
Really?
Which has actually thrown a bit of a spanner in the works. And so
that is interesting.
Guess who's has been fastest over the 3 days? Marquez.
I was going to say, does his surname also begin with M and end in Arquez?
Yes, Alex Marquez, though.
Yes.
His little brother, who has shown, after coming second in the championship last year, shown an awful lot of good pace recently. It's really come around, and through testing, it does show that Ducati is still going to be the best, probably. With the fastest time belonging to Alex Marquez, then Marco Bezzecchi on his Aprilia, then Fabio Di Giannantonio on another Ducati bike, but for VR46, and then Marc Marquez on the Ducati, and then in fifth, coming from really far back on the grid, Joan Mir on the Honda, which there's been a lot of speculation about Honda making a push forward and about Fabio Quartararo moving over to the factory team. So if they're truly making a bit of a push, then that could be very interesting to see what happens with them. The only other really noteworthy thing about the test is that Yamaha, who last year were in the mud, continue to be in the mud. So that's not really changed, and hopefully the V4 can kind of pick up, or they can figure out what's going on with the power there. Otherwise, Yamaha are going to have some very, very angry Turkish fans to deal with. And I believe that's it.
Well,
I think about it.
Yes, so just to conclude, in the Formula One world, as of today when we record this, all of the liveries have finally been revealed. We now know what each of the Formula One cars will look like. So with testing coming later this week, next week's episode will see us go over testing, and also we will be ranking all of the liveries that have been revealed so far, and giving a bit of our own sort of reasoning as to why, sort of along the same lines as we did for the tracks today, but maybe hopefully a little bit shorter as well, bit less waffle,
a bit more condensed. It's a lot more just about like paint. So, and there's only
it is really just vain. It is looks. So yeah. So we if you've made it this far, then first of all, wow. And then
thank you so much for listening.
Second of all, thank you very much for listening. We hope you tune in next time. Make sure you subscribe on both platforms, Spotify and YouTube, and thank you very much. So with nothing else to be added, goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. We shall see you next week for testing review for the first week of testing and the livery ranking. Goodbye.